These past few months, mass protests have overtaken the country and served as an outlet for Black people to express justified outrage and grief at this nation's blatant disregard for our lives. Yet during this incredibly transformative time, Black women and girls, disabled sisters across the border, and women that exist along all other axes of oppression have consistently been decentered. Whether in police interactions on the streets or in their own homes, theirs are the Black lives who continue to underscore the poignancy of this moment and a future where all Black women and Black communities are liberated from persistent violence, domination, and discrimination. This march is a call to gather and mobilize in the name of Breonna Taylor. These past few months, mass protests have overtaken the country and served as an outlet for Black people to express justified outrage and grief at this nation's blatant disregard for our lives. Yet during this incredibly transformative time, Black women and girls, disabled sisters across the border, and women that exist along all other axes of oppression have consistently been decentered. Whether in police interactions on the streets or in their own homes, theirs are the Black lives who continue to underscore the poignancy of this moment and a future where all Black women and Black communities are liberated from persistent violence, domination, and discrimination. This march is a call to gather and mobilize in the name of Breonna Taylor. We march in the name of Sandra Bland. We march in the name of Corinne Gaines. We march in the name of Oluwatoyin Salau. We march in the name of Tony McDade. We march in the name of Tatiana Jefferson. We march in the name of Renisha McBride and all of the countless other Black women who have been slain in our streets and in their own homes. To those who marched before us, Coretta Scott King, Florence Flo Kennedy, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, Angela Davis, Shirley Chisholm, Mahalia Jackson, Sonia Sanchez, Dorothy Height. To those who marched before us, we thank you. To our sisters, this moment could not and will not succeed without you. And we are proud to fight alongside you this September for the future we deserve in a world of our own making. If we are all we've got, then we choose to love each other fiercely.
Clearly, I am not a fat ass. I am active brain and lip smacking peach deep, sometimes too aggressive in its honesty, and heart sweet, that loves wholly and completely, whom it may choose, whomever it may choose. I am not gonna lie and pacify. I am arms to hold. I am lips to speak. I am a motherfucking G. Strong legs that stroll off the 33 bus, or out of a money green phantom comfortably. Knees that bend to pray, cleaned from Ajax washings. Hair that is thick and soft, thighs that betwixt an amazing, all expense, grand prize. I am eyes that sing, smile that brightens, touch that rings, and supplies euphoric release. I am a grand dame queen beast. I am warm, I am peace. From the roads of Botswana, from 23rd Street, from the inside, third eye, ever watching this wicked, wicked system of things I do see. I am friend to pen, and a lover of strong women, a diamond to men. I am curious and interested like children. I welcome the wise to teach, appreciator of my culture, thick, not just from bone dents and eat. I have a rhythm in my ways and a practice in my seek. And yes, I do crave the rhythm of my space with a man that rejoices in God's grace. With faith, I do hear to listen. Two hands that fist when force pushes to shove and your ego won't submit. I am gifted. I am all of this. And indeed, the shit. Clearly, I am not just an ass.
Family, comrades, welcome to the March for Black Women. We join together, we band together, arms locked today. Our voices are hoarse from screaming. Our voices are hoarse from yelling, from demanding justice. But we join together today. We join together today to March for Black Women. This is the 4th annual March for Black Women. For the past 3 years, we have marched for Black women. This year, to ensure safety for all, we are gathering online, and we are grateful that you have joined us. We stand with those who are in the streets. We stand with those who are sitting at home. We stand with those who cannot move. We stand with those who are grieving. We too are devastated. We too are devastated by the Kentucky grand jury decision with regards to Breonna Taylor's murderers. We offer our unwavering support for her family, for her friends, and everyone in our communities grieving the loss of yet one other sister. We will keep shouting. We will keep marching. We will keep fighting in Breonna's name until the day Black women and girls receive what we are owed and the justice we deserve. We have marched for the past 3 years. We have stood to mute R. Kelly in New York City. We have stood with the survivors of Bill Cosby. We have organized justice rides to Oklahoma for the survivors of Holtzclaw. But this march is a call today to gather and mobilize in the name of Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, Corrine Gaines, Oluwatoyin Salau, Nina Pop, Mercy Mack, Monica Diamond, Rhea Milton, Jane Thompson, Tatiana Jefferson, Renisha McBride, and countless other Black women and girls, trans and GNC community members who have been slain in our streets and in their own homes. Yes, and in their own homes, both by state-sanctioned and gender-based violence. To our movement makers and waymakers speaking today, you will hear from M. Adams, Luz Marquez Benval, Gina Belafonte, Reverend Tracy Blackman, Mahogany Brown, Glinda Carr, Rosa Clemente, Michaela Angela Davis, Reverend Dr. Cheryl Dudley, Donna Hilton, Lisa Lynn Jacobs, Luz Marquez Benbow, Mojo Disco, Miski Noor, Representative Ilan Omar, Lynn Roberts, Aisha Shahida Simmons, Whitney Smith, Opal Tometi, and many, many, many more. Lend your voice, join us, lock arms with us. This movement could not and will not succeed without you. To all of our sisters, our brothers, and GNC people everywhere, this movement could not and will not succeed without you. And we are proud to fight alongside you for the future we deserve in a world of our own making. If we are all we've got, then we choose to love each other fiercely. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us virtually as we unite in all our diversities to unapologetically center Black, cis, trans, and GNC voices in the continued fight for racial and gender justice. This is the frontier, and I believe many of us are already bravely at its edge. What we do now strategically and in our own way to reshape a new culture where the killings stop, has to radically be different. It has to radically be different in our words and in our actions, thereby fulfilling the vision of all that we are and all that we can create as an incredibly determined and magnificent people. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for locking arms with us. Thank you for joining the March for Black Women. Thank you.
I want to say thank you and welcome to the 4th annual March for Black Women. We are so excited to gather with each and every one of you virtually in 2020 to celebrate all of the wins from the past 4 years, the victories that we have had communally, spiritually, legislatively, and in so many aspects of our work as Black women. I am so excited to welcome you to the 4th annual March for Black Women. This week has been an incredibly powerful, yet sobering, yet grounding week for us as Black women. And I could not be more grateful to hear the voices, the sage wisdom, the incredible powerhouses that are going to be anchoring us throughout this day and throughout this moment as a constituency of Black women, a constituency, a group, a village, a tribe of Black sisters. And I just send my love, my light, and I blow kisses to each and every one of you. Today, we march mobily, virtually, in all of the ways that we can, across borders, across time, across space, for Breonna Taylor, for Sandra Bland, for a Tatiana Jefferson, for Monica Diamond, for Nina Pop, for Tony McDade, right? For all of our community members who we have lost to not only state-sanctioned violence, but also gender-based violence that occurs right in our homes, in our communities, in our schools, on campus, even in our Black churches, right? In every aspect of our community, we denounce violence against Black women and girls. And I am so pleased to be gathered in community, even virtually, across airwaves, in this way, with each and every one of you, that you have gathered, that you've sat down, that you've brought your attention and your intention to this particular moment where we get to celebrate the lives and the mattering of Black women, where we get to validate our very existence, where we get to stomp our feet and clap our hands and jump for joy and rage at the same time, because our Black lives matter, because her Black life matters, because together our collective voice is an incredible force into the future. So I am just pleased. I am so grateful, I'm honored, and I'm grounded in this intention that we move forward into this 4th annual March for Black Women, centering the voices of Black women, centering the lived experiences of Black women, centering our very being's existence, our mattering into this moment. And I cannot say just how profound this afternoon will be. And if you're on the West Coast, this morning. And if you're somewhere in the African diaspora, our hearts, our love, our shine is upon you. and we welcome you into this series of rituals, this series of space making, demand making that we get to say and be, the justice seeking that we get to put forth as a collective voice. And there is a roar that will be heard across the world today. So thank you again for joining us for this 4th annual March for Black Women.
Rolling through your city, looking for the antidote. Rolling through your city, looking for the antidote. Got a dope man, I hope he open, I really do. I'm on the go. Our negativity start with me, all in my mind but I don't believe. Don't know my work so I never leave. A painted facade in these cloudy dreams. Just some stories I told a psychiatrist. Shredding my shit wasn't making sense. Blocking my blessings, neglecting my essence. My system be stressing, see switch my direction. I'm here for it all. Check out the scars, picture a star. Thanking the Lord, it looked like a time. I did it for y'all, tipping off the balance. I can barely manage your standard. Cancer causing conversation, complicate the conscience. Be more careful, all these levels niggas trying to climb. Understand it's just a state of mind. We can build the world or we can sit here blind, but time don't wait for fear. Told y'all this our year, only love in the atmosphere. Sweet light in the sun appear, we building millions. With your confidence, our children need more than $2.00.
I can see the beauty in pain. Ask me what I do in the pain. It's my duty not to do this in vain. All this growth that opportunities bring. All this growth that opportunities bring. Oh, I can see the beauty in pain. Ask me what I do in the pain. It's my duty not to do this in vain. All this growth that opportunities bring. All this growth that opportunities bring. Oh,
rolling through your city looking.
Rolling through your city again.
Rolling through your city looking for the antidote. Rolling through your city looking. Rolling through your city looking for the antidote. Yeah, I got loose change, couple dollars for a new string. What you charging, going through things. Living lawless make you do things. Living honest make you moves though. Living out with the drugs, I've been trapping off the booze, mapping out these avenues, catch me in traffic, you text me the addy, I drop off the package, bitch, I'm on the go. They need relief, I know the pieces of product of love, and that's my antidote. Mother Nature turned a new leaf, burning new leaf, burning new leaf. I've been patient for a few weeks, got some new beats in my crew fleet. I've been facing situations lately with some new peace, cause I know God. I've been praying on a daily basis, I improve me, I improve y'all. Give me space while I innovate, let me ventilate my lungs. Give me grace while I integrate, everything is great, let me see what's up with the blood. Rolling through your city looking. Rolling through your city looking for the antidote. Rolling through your city looking for you. Rolling through your city looking for the antidote. Rolling, rolling, rolling through your city looking for the antidote. Rolling, rolling, rolling through your city looking for the antidote.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
No justice.
No justice.
No peace.
No peace.
No justice.
No justice.
No peace.
No peace.
No justice.
No justice.
No peace.
No peace.
If we don't get it, shut it down. If we don't get it,
Shut it down.
if we don't get it,
Shut it down.
For the past 3 years, we have marched for Black women. This year, to ensure safety for all, we will be gathering online. Join us as we broadcast the revolution for and by Black women. You can watch the 4th Annual March for Black Women this Saturday, September 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific at blackwomensblueprint.org or on their Facebook and YouTube page. The revolution will be broadcast.
I am so proud to be speaking to the 4th Annual March for Black Women. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. Experiencing solidarity with each other and learning from one another is so important for Black women. I want to share my story and talk about the ways Black women remain so marginalized in our society. I was born in Somalia and fled during the Somali Civil War. It was the first time I understood what hunger felt like, what death looked like. My family spent 4 years in a Kenyan refugee camp before coming to the United States. My family and I moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota's Cedar Riverside neighborhood, the heart of the Somali diaspora. And Minnesota became my home. When I was a teenager, I interpreted for my grandfather at a DFL caucus and realized how much work still awaited people like me, a Black Muslim immigrant woman. I've worked as a custodian, as a cashier, and as a political operative. In 2016, I was elected to the State House in Minnesota. And in 2018, I was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. During my life as a Black immigrant woman, a Black American woman, I have seen and experienced how difficult it is to be a Black woman in America. More than 50 years ago, Malcolm X said, the most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And that is still the case today. When we talk about women's suffrage movement and the 19th Amendment, we never hear about the Black women who fought for it. And we don't talk about how Black women didn't fully get the right to vote until the 1960s. Women of color led the fight for the suffrage and had to continue the fight to secure the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Still today, Black women are met with so many barriers. Despite spending more on healthcare than any other country, the United States has the worst rates of maternal death in the developed world. This rate is increasing in the United States as it decreases in other countries. And this shocking reality is even more bleak for Black women, who experience significantly worse maternal health outcomes regardless of their education and income. The only way forward is for us to continue to mobilize together. We have to make our voices heard in the streets, and we have to make our power known at the ballot box. We share this responsibility and this journey as Black sisters, and we will not be silenced.
We will be marginalized no more. All hands on deck. The future of our democracy is at stake and humanity is in the balance. I'm Gina Belafonte, an artivist and the executive director of Sankofa.org. Let me ask you a question. How do you imagine freedom? Is it clean drinking water and air to breathe? Is it the right to love and identify as you wish? Is it the right to vote? Is it safe schools where all of our children have the right to learn and their curriculums tell the truth of our history? I would like to acknowledge the ancestors and all those who came before us, all those who paved a way for us to be here today. For our history is a history of genocide and stolen bodies for profit. And I will argue that there are age-appropriate ways to teach our history and to our children in a truthful way. And for our children that attend business schools and schools of economics, what are we asking them to become, to strive for? And those who enter into the arts, what are the stories we want them to tell? Violence is deeply rooted in American culture. We all know how this country began, forcibly taking land from Native Americans, dragging Africans over here in chains, building a country on the backs of the poor and the unprotected. But where are we headed? That's the real question. I'm interested to find ways that we as a community can work together towards healing, while also keeping folks accountable as we move towards justice. To find ways to address as a race, racism as a primary issue, restorative justice and reconciliation, and practices around the beloved community. The shift is happening, and we need to drop the way in which we have been colonially brainwashed and traditionally led to believe what matters, and adopt new and different identifiers of what and how we sustain ourselves and live productively in joy and peace. Many say we need a revolution, and while that may be true, we also need an evolution of consciousness, an evolution of ideas. Development is about people and not about things. Quality of life depends on the opportunities people have to resources that honor their fundamental human needs, basic human needs. They're precise. They're not ebbing and flowing with the trends. Most of us all want food, shelter, clothing, and love. Can we not find ways to honor those needs without feeling our own livelihoods at stake? Race, gender, class, disability, and ethnic identity are interconnected, and we must ensure our efforts are rooted in this understanding. We are dynamically interrelated, interdependent. Imagine, if you will, a community where there are peoples of different backgrounds that recognize we are all interconnected and that our individual well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the other. It's an understanding that informs our commitment to shifting repressive power dynamics and strengthening the rights and influence of those most affected by violence, most affected by oppression and injustice across the globe. Black women, trans women, Black trans women, and women of color are the most marginalized and are the recipients of the most violence on domestic soils. When I think about justice, equity, or equality, I see that almost every civil rights issue, whether it's racial justice, climate justice, education justice, criminal justice, food justice, healthcare, or our rights to choose what happens to our bodies, Black women are affected in just about every case directly to all that we collectively fight for. The civil rights movement and the feminist movement historically excluded the rights of or the leadership of Black women. And if it had not, and kept in mind the rights of all marginalized women, perhaps we would have seen more successes and progress of our efforts and would have been able to build power in unity. We are currently in the midst of perhaps the greatest resurgence of a progressive collective movement building upon what unites us. We can no longer be indifferent. We must access a strategy by coming together, exchanging ideas, discovering new possibilities to figure out how to move forward the beloved community. So please, everybody, go out there and vote. Thank you.
I'm tired of saying I'm tired. Tired of motherfuckers caucus asking me to choose between feminism and womanism, between race and gender, between this nation and the country of my birth, between honesty and hurting white women's feelings, between speaking truth to power and securing funding. Even inside the rooms of the most committed feminist organizations, support for radical progressive women of color has been tepid at best. Even as you cover your bodies with Black Lives Matter t-shirts and use terms like inclusive and intersectional, white women don't really want to hear criticism about the tradition of white supremacy still alive inside the feminist ranks of the struggle for equal rights and freedoms. 100 years after white women penned 6 volumes of the history of women's suffrage without acknowledging Mary Church Terrell or Harriet Tubman, we are still fighting for you to add our issues to the feminist agenda. Even at these modern marches where Black women remain the backbone of political protest in the 21st century, we are still swimming against the same tide of racism Black women suffragists broke through when they said fuck you in 1913 to white feminists insisting they go to the back of the line. Ida B. Wells led the cadre of Black women past the bristling white suffragists, concerned with how white men would perceive the temerity of her Black skin, how it might jeopardize their impending privilege. 100 years later, I'm now watching this virus move across America. In Black zip codes in Brooklyn, brown women are losing parents and grandparents in record numbers. I'm listening to poor Black women devise magic to fill the bellies of their children, to placate threatening landlords, to plot for a future no one is sure is still coming. 100 years later, much of what we both fought for is still mainly out of the reach of Black and brown women, while our white activist counterparts sit in powerful seats dispersing freedoms and fiscal considerations as if we did not also earn them. So yes, it's a bit of an understatement to say we are tired, to say we've been tired since before white women got the vote, tired since before white feminists sugar-coated promises of what they would do for us when they got their seat at the proverbial white table. I was tired before the 53% of you voted in this orange monstrosity. I was tired before you started mimicking the politics we have always believed in. Until we are all free, we are none of us free. Black women have always known that our freedoms are tethered to our communities, to those languishing in chains, in prisons, in poverty. 100 years later, we are still waiting for you to put your body and your money where you've been saying your politics live. How many ways can Black women make art of our pain for your consumption? Aren't you tired of hearing poems and songs and reading novels and watching plays about how fucked up white people are and about how far you all have to go, about how much work you have to do to earn the trust of Black women? In this warped, crazy time of this pandemic, the world as we know it has stopped turning. This might be the moment for you all to act differently. Alone or in concert, with or without you, we are still moving ahead. Dead or alive, we have always done this work. With or without rest, we have always given our very best to the movement. Now might be the time for the rest of you to consider in cohort, in a group, in cultural power, doing the same.
Indescribable loss, so much so that I literally lost all the data on my computer. I had recorded this kind of written, speech moment for this, and it's gone. And with other things, just things that I can get back. But what it is a sign for me to just come to you in this way, this remote Black woman experience that we're having, and tell the truth. And the truth is, I miss you. I miss us. I miss how how we gather and what happens when we gather, and what we conjure, and the energy and the hugs and the realness, and the ancestral energy that we know that passes through us, particularly at the Black Women's March. I'm sure as many of you have, like real mystical experiences while I was there, in person. And here we are again, like our ancestors, finding a new way through catastrophe and chaos and uncertainty. And there's no one better than Black women to know how to navigate through this, how to know that we will get through this. There's no one more qualified in this country and in this world than Black women to lead. But I'm really I'm just really clear that this is different, y'all. Like this is about resilience. I feel like there's two really strong forces with me right now, and maybe you too. There is terror and there is resilience. And I know that it is for us to tap into the resilience. And I'm not even able to delude myself to thinking that there is like, oh, let's twirl, let's find Black girl joy. Like that is not available to me right now. It may be to others, but that is not. But resilience is. Our ancestors are available. But again, this loss of movement, loss of family, loss of certainty, loss of ritual, and you know how we know how to like make things better by just meeting up, whether it's a march or in the salon or at church, and now we're having to find new ways to connect, really spiritual, like going in and getting it, going in and tapping it, and because it's in there, that force field of power that our ancestors programmed is in there, and there's nowhere to go. Well, for me, there's nowhere to go but in right now. I'm in Sedona, Arizona. Can't even make it to Washington to join many of you that have been on the streets, whether it's in Washington or in Kentucky for Breonna Taylor. I'm having to really use those tools that we have been sharpening through our practices, through meditation, prayer. Really, they're like being tested right now. Like, do you really have a spiritual life? Do you really have that connection to your ancestors who have done this and more, who have faced this and more? I love us. I love us when we are apart. I love us when we are together. I love us because we keep trying to find new ways. And I just, again, I just miss us. I miss y'all. I feel you. I am so grateful that there was no giving up this year, that we, more than ever, centering Black women in a movement for humanity, for equity, for justice, is more needed than ever. I don't know. I don't know who we are on the other side of this. I don't know what November brings. all I know is like in this moment where I don't have my home, I don't have my daughter, I don't have my computer, I have the knowing that we're out here and that we are resilient, even in terror, even in catastrophe, and that we will take care of each other. And that is my prayer for all of you, that you're doing the best that you can to take care of yourself, and to take care of a sister if she's near you. I just love you, and thank you, and I'm grateful for you. And we will see what we do at the polls. We do it every single time. We are the core, and everyone knows it now. And I trust us. I trust that we're going to get us through this. Again, I thank you. I love you. I don't have much more to give or to say. I'm stripped, well, and real and very vulnerable, and in this vulnerability, very, very grateful. Thank you, my dear, dear sisters.
For the past 3 years, we have marched for Black women. This year, to ensure safety for all, we will be gathering online. Join us as we broadcast the revolution for and by Black women. You can watch the 4th Annual March for Black Women tomorrow, September 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Black Women's Blueprint's website or on their Facebook and YouTube page. The revolution will be televised.
Greetings. My name is Whitney D. Smith, and I am a proud Black woman. I'm grateful, blessed, and excited to be able to share this space with you today. Thank you, Black Women's Blueprint, for spearheading the Black Women's March and the continuous service, continuous upliftment, the continuous work you do to create and ignite change in this world for Black women, for Black girls, for the marginalized, for all those who have been dehumanized, for the survivors of sexual assault, sexual violence, and for trans women. Keep moving the torch. The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. And I quote Malcolm X. And I stand as a Black woman today in agreement with my sisters that no longer will we tolerate being the most disrespected, the most devalued, the most neglected, the most dehumanized, and the most unprotected humans in this country we call the United States of America. Black women have been major contributors to this world and the backbones of this country, the nurturers of this country, the mothers of this country. And we will not allow our voices to be muted or to be silenced about the issues that plague our community and the livelihood of Black women, Black girls, and trans women. We have served and continue to serve in many capacities that fosters love, community, humanity, and support. We continue to show that we belong here and we deserve a seat at the table. And no longer will we ask for permission to have that seat. Matter of fact, we are unapologetically demanding a seat at the table because we are deserving of it. We will not stand on the sidelines and continue to allow politicians who work for the citizens of this country to ignore the constant police brutality directed towards Black women, murders by the hands of police, and not being held accountable, still screaming justice for Breonna Taylor, and the attacks and the abuse of trans women. We are tired. Enough is enough. Politicians, please take note. Black women always show up and we show out. We show up in numbers. and our power is in our numbers. So if you're going to continue to ignore the issues that are prevalent in the lives of Black women and continue to take action in putting laws and practices in place that do not support, protect, provide equal opportunity for us, we will vote you out and vote in the leaders that have proven to believe in justice for all people and not just some. As Black women, we are not giving up our spaces. We are going to continue to fight, march, protest, challenge, and rally until spaces are created that generate sustainable change to live throughout our communities and this world. We demand that spaces are created that promote healing for survivors of domestic abuse and rape. As a survivor of rape at 15 years old, I told myself that I would not allow the incident to silence me nor mute me. I will use that which someone tried to take from me, my voice, my choice, my right, to ignite change and demand change, to create spaces where Black women's voices, bodies, choices, and rights will not be taken advantage of. As Black women, we will take our stand and our rightful spaces in this world and fight with all our blood, sweat, and tears, standing on the shoulders of our foremothers, our ancestors, our heritage, our culture, while holding the hands with our sisters and allies, demanding that spaces are designed to promote and enhance economic development, equal education for our children, justice in our community, and spaces where all Black women, all Black girls feel safe. We demand it, and we demand it now. Just like Nettie in The Color Purple, she offers Celie, her sister, some advice, telling her to stand up for herself. She says, don't let them run over you. You gotta fight. Well, Nettie, we are taking heed to your advice. We will no longer allow the judicial system, systemic racism, bigotry, misogyny, police brutality, sexism, racism, sexual violence, rape, and abuse to run over us. Nah, we ain't going out like that. United we stand as Black women, standing in solidarity with each other, standing in purpose with each other, standing in power with each other, standing in our divinity with each other. I'll leave you with this quote from Alice Walker. I am an expression of the divine, just like a peach is, just like a fish is. I have a right to be this way. I can't apologize for that, nor can I change it, nor do I want to. We will never have to be other than who we are in order to be successful. We realize that we are as ourselves unlimited and our experiences valid. It is for the rest of the world to recognize this if they choose. And I'll add, we will make you see us.
When Fannie Lou Hamer said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, she meant no more turn cheek, no more patience for the obstruction of a Black woman's right to vote and plant and feed her family. She meant equality will cost you your luxurious life. If a Black woman can't vote, if a brown baby can't be fed, if we all don't have the same opportunity America promised, she meant ain't no mountain boulder enough to wand off a determined woman. She meant, look, here at my hands, each palm holds a history of the 16 shots that chased me harm-free from a plantation shack. Look at my eyes. Both these are windows, these little lights of mine. She meant nothing but death can stop me from marching out a jail cell, still a free woman. She meant nothing but death can stop me from running for Congress. She meant no blackjack beating will stop my feet from working and my heart from swelling and my mouth from praying. She meant America, You will learn freedom feels like butter beans, potatoes, and cotton seeds picked by my sturdy hands. She meant, look, Victoria Gray, Anna Devine, and me in our rightful seats on the house floor. She meant until my children and my children's children and they, babies too, can march and vote and get back in interest what was planted in this blessed land. She meant I ain't stopping America. I ain't stopping America. Not even death can take away from my woman hands what I rightfully earned.
For the past 3 years, we have marched for Black women. This year, to ensure safety for all, we will be gathering online. Join us as we broadcast the revolution for and by Black women. You can watch the 4th Annual March for Black Women this Saturday, September 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific at blackwomensblueprint.org or on their Facebook and YouTube page. The revolution will be broadcast.
Peace, everybody. My name is Rosa Clemente. I'm a community organizer, scholar activist, independent journalist, and the 2008 vice presidential candidate on the Green Party ticket. Black Women's Blueprint tells us that Black women are not a monolith, but we are a movement. A couple hours ago, I, like so many in this country, watched a decision come down on the 3 officers who were charged with the murder of Breonna Taylor. 1 officer was charged, 2 were not, or 1 officer was indicted, 2 were not, and all the other officers, up to 6, maybe 8 additional officers, are under investigation with internal affairs. It's important for us to note that there are community groups on the ground that have been doing incredible organizing led by Black women to get justice for Breonna Taylor. I think at this point in my organizing, in my life, I don't ever think we're going to get justice from the criminal justice system. The police are there for a function, and they blatantly and wantonly kill Black people, Black women, Black trans people, Black queer people, Black people all over this country every day. So it's important that we have an organization like Black Women's Blueprint that makes sure that particularly Black women are not silenced. They can tell their stories and they can tell their narratives. It's good to be in virtual space with the 4th Annual Black Women's March, and thank you so much for just having me be able to just say a couple of things and be in the company of so many other dope sisters that do incredible work. This week has been particularly hard. Not only are we now dealing with the non-indictment of the officers who murdered Breonna Taylor, except for 1. This week, we also heard from Dawn Wooten, a Black nurse, a Black woman who was working at an ICE detention center in Georgia and who filed a whistleblower complaint last Monday against ICE. In her complaint, she states that immigrant women in these concentration camps received hysterectomies without their knowledge or their consent. Unfortunately, this is not the first time in the United States of America that this has happened to women. This government has a history of performing hysterectomies and sterilizing women. As a Black Puerto Rican woman, I know this story because I didn't go through it, but 1/3 of the women on the island of Puerto Rico were sterilized without their consent and were also used as they were experimented on with the birth control pill and IUD. So when all these contraceptions were being created, it is Puerto Rican women without the consent that suffered from side effects and even death, as well as those who were never able to have children again, obviously. And why is this important? Because well, it's always important when we look and tell the true history of particularly how Black women's bodies have been set aside, tossed aside, cast aside. But in the time that we're in now, with the potential overturn of Roe versus Wade, we have to be very clear that Roe versus Wade is not just about abortion. It is literally the right of us as Black women to control our own bodies and have autonomy. So the overturning of Roe versus Wade, women with privilege will still be able to get abortions. And abortion is a reproductive right. But really, we should engender, and we do engender who we are completely. Our lives, our human rights, our autonomy may be taken away. It's a slow, in my opinion, a slow, methodical genocide, and not only stripping us of these reproductive rights, but our human rights. And I, as a friend, a mother, a titi, a daughter, a sister, every day I'm waking up more and more petrified. I'm feeling infuriated. I'm angry. I'm so don't know what to do sometimes at the state of the ferocity of oppression that's coming against us as a people, but particularly Black women. And with that, I then realized I have an immense amount of privilege. And then I try to change quickly, and I ask myself, what can I do, whether it's small or big today, to contribute to the freedom struggle in this country? What is my commitment? What is it that I'm willing to sacrifice? Then I don't feel helpless or hopeless. And then I think and thank our ancestors and our elders, and I'm grateful for all the women that you have seen throughout today, but all the women, all the kick-ass organizing women that I know in my life. And that's why it's critical that the March for Black Women, the 4th annual one, continue even if virtually. All these women that you've seen today, I call them a larger part of an extended village that I'm so lucky to be in. The struggle and lucky to be in. Our resistance is our weapon. The system of white supremacy, racial capitalism, patriarchy, misogyny, state violence, homophobia, transphobia continues to try and disappear and erase us. They've been trying to do this for centuries. But you know what? We are here and we are not going anywhere. We are part of a long distance struggle. And right now we are at a crucial moment of how we can be within operational unity with each other as a people, as Black women, as Afro-Latino, Black Latina women, and how we're going to support organizations like Black Women's Blueprint, but also how we're going to support the many, many young sisters that have been out here for hundreds of days demanding not only justice, not only reform of a system, but a complete dismantling of this system of oppression. So Black Women's Blueprint is one of the organizations that I look to when I feel helpless. I read their framework for liberation. I see all the work that they're doing. I see how they're encompassing all Black women, Black Haitian women, Black Puerto Rican women, Black Mexican women, African American women. Black Women's Blueprint for me and this March for Black women, it stands with us. It organizes with us. It resists with us. And no matter what these systems throw at us, we are still here. I hope that you go to Black Women's Blueprint and read the demands. We demand to be afforded the recognition, dignity, and respect that we deserve as Black women. We demand justice for the murdered. We demand meaningful presidential debates on issues that center Black women and other women of color. We demand the passage of the BREATHE Act, which divests our taxpayer dollars from brutal and discriminatory policing and invests in a new vision of public safety. We demand a better Violence Against Women's Act, which protects survivors' rights. We demand ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA, more than 100 years after it was introduced. We demand that Title IX protects survivors and not perpetrators. So again, thank you so much, Black Women's Blueprint, to all the sisters that are doing incredible work, young, old, intergenerational, across every ethnic, racial stripe, all of it. I'm just grateful. You know, we're living in a crazy time, and organizations like Black Women's Blueprint and the March for Black Women, a project of theirs, are critically important for us to stay mentally well at this moment. So thank you for letting me record, or thank you for allowing me to be part of this incredible lineup that you have today, to be able to share some of my feelings and thoughts at this moment. And in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, sometimes it seems like to tell the truth today is to run the risk of being killed. But if I fall, I will fall 5 feet, 4 inches forward in the fight for freedom. I'm not backing off. Peace.
Greetings from the unceded land of the Piscataway indigenous people on Turtle Island, now known as Washington, D.C. in the United States. My name is Aisha Shahida Simmons. I am a Black, feminist, lesbian, survivor of childhood sexual violence and adult rape. I am a Buddhist committed to working with others to compassionately and humanely disrupt, dismantle, and end behaviors and systems that cause harm to humans, the environment, and all of its inhabitants. I speak libation in honor of all of the indigenous nations from Alaska to Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America, down to Chile and Argentina, whose land was either taken by force or by unjust treaties created by European settlers who, when they arrived here over 500 years ago, could not peacefully cohabitate without dominating, without raping, and without murdering millions of indigenous women, men, two-spirit people, and children. I speak libation in honor of all of the millions of enslaved African women, men, gender non-binary people, and children who were kidnapped and brought to the Americas and the Caribbean against their will in chains and shackles. Genocide, confiscated land, human trafficking known as the transatlantic slave trade, centuries of free labor, forced migration, stolen children, rape, blood, sweat, and tears make up the foundation of all of the Americas and the Caribbean. Since the enslavement of Africans in the Western Hemisphere, Black African women, femmes, and gender non-binary people have been continuously central to and catalysts for racial justice movements in all of the Americas and the Caribbean, not just the United States. While our names and labor may not be readily recognized nor cited as often as the names and labor of cisgender heterosexual Black men, we have been and we are often at the forefront, if not alongside of the movements for racial and gender justice. Contemporarily, we are all living with at least 3 simultaneous pandemics: the COVID-19 pandemic, the white supremacy pandemic, and the childhood and adult sexual violence pandemics, all of which disproportionately impact diasporic Black communities. U.S. national platforms and agendas must include the unique ways these pandemics, along with poverty, hate crimes committed against the LGBTQI communities, specifically the murders of Black trans women, state violence committed against youth through failing underfunded and militarized public schools, the school to prison pipeline, the sexual abuse to prison pipeline, immigration, policing, and prisons, all of which harm Black women, femmes, gender non-binary people, and men at disproportionate rates. We need reproductive justice. We need disability justice and affordable, accessible Medicare for all. These are but a few of the issues that are central to Black women, femmes, and gender non-binary people. It is not until the most marginalized of us are free and safe from violence committed against our communities and free and safe from violence committed from within our communities that all of us will be safe. We have a fascist in the White House who, with the support of the Republican-controlled Senate, is dismantling, if not destroying, everything that multiracial people fought and died for over decades. We are in the midst of an inferno of human rights violations in the United States with global ramifications. I am the first to share that I have critiques and concerns about our democratic process in the United States. However, I am acutely aware that November 3rd, 2020 may be one of the most important elections in this time period. Everyone who is eligible to vote must vote. I am aware that there are too many who cannot vote because of draconian laws against formerly incarcerated people who've served their time. We must abolish the prison industrial complex and co-create compassionate, survivor-centered systems that hold people accountable for the harm they caused. We cannot afford to sit on the sidelines with this election. This is not about voting for a messiah as it is about voting a fascist out of office. While there is a Herculean task of registering everyone eligible to vote and ensuring that they can vote safely, the work does not end on November 3rd, 2020. We, the people, must work vigilantly outside of these systems that were never created for most of our survival. We must continue to work and compassionately struggle for justice and peace for all. We must remember that elected officials are not our parents and we are not their children. Elected officials work for us. They should be accountable to us, the people, not the corporations, not the lobbyists, but we, the people. We must continue to organize and build coalitions across differences to co-create an equitable and accountable society where all of us are housed, abundantly fed, educated, healthy, financially solvent, and free from any form of harm outside and inside of our homes. We must work to ensure that our planet is safe from environmental dangers. This is not easy work, but it is necessary, laborious, intergenerational work for all of our survival and for the survival of future generations. And we must do it not at the expense of other nations throughout this world. No one is free while others are oppressed. No one is free while others are oppressed. No one is free while others are oppressed. Thank you, Black Women's Blueprint, for the honor and invitation to speak at the March for Black Women. Peace.
These past few months, mass protests have overtaken the country and served as an outlet for Black people to express justified outrage and grief at this nation's blatant disregard for our lives. Yet during this incredibly transformative time, Black women and girls, disabled sisters, sisters across the border, and women that exist along all other axes of oppression have consistently been decentered. Whether in police interactions on the streets or in their own homes, theirs are the Black lives who continue to underscore the poignancy of this moment and a future where all Black women and Black communities are liberated from persistent violence, domination, and discrimination. This march is a call to gather and mobilize in the name of Breonna Taylor. We march in the name of Sandra Bland. We march in the name of Corinne Gaines. We march in the name of Oluwatoyin Salau. We march in the name of Tony McDade. We march in the name of a Tatiana Jefferson. We march in the name of Renisha McBride and all of the countless other Black women who have been slain in our streets and in their own homes. To our sisters, this moment could not and will not succeed without you. And we are proud to fight alongside you this September for the future we deserve in a world of our own making. If we are all we've got, then we choose to love each other fiercely. Join us virtually as we unite in all of our diversity to unapologetically center Black, cis, trans, and GNC voices in the continued fight for racial and gender justice. Join Black Women's Blueprint for our 4th annual March for Black Women this Saturday, September 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Black Women's Blueprint's website, Facebook, and YouTube. The revolution will be broadcast.
Whenever you're wearing your mask, think about your voice. Do not allow your mask to become your muzzle. Find ways to clearly communicate your heart, mind, and spirit, even with it on. At another time, look at yourself closely in the mirror. Take in the wonder of your own beauty. Linger on yourself for a few moments. Then you can remember the declaration of a woman captured in Scripture, the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5, where she says, "I am black and beautiful, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon." My charge to us today is a prayer and a proclamation. I hope it speaks to you. God of our hearts, those of us who are Black women, particularly today, embrace our Black womanity because we know we are made in your image. Made in your likeness, we reflect your goodness. When you made us, oh God, you said, "This is good, very good." With deep skin, fluffy hair, substantial features, and colorfully rich expressions, we are a unique manifestation of your grace. We long to see you one day and live. When we look at you, we will recognize our true selves in your reflection. The tents of Kedar must have been made of the finest materials because they were woven together to shelter queens and kings. The curtains of Solomon, with their intricate beauty, must have insulated windows of universal wisdom. Surely, too, they were magnificent. The black and beautiful one in this sacred passage, the Song of Solomon, declared her own beauty. She interrupted the sneers of those who tried to deride her. Her admirers loved her, though, and agreed that her black life mattered. Thank you, God, for making us exactly who we are, multifaceted, with the cut, color, and clarity of a precious jewel. Mighty forces in high places have tried to tell us otherwise. They have tried to transform our insistence and persistence for justice into bitterness. They would have the world believe that blackness and black womanity needs to be suppressed. But we instead declare that this pandemic of misogyny and racism must be stopped. It has taken too many of our lives. Say her name. Say their names. And has infected too many bodies and spirits. Say your own name. This virus is a lie and must be called out as the slander that it is, and then cast into the abyss. As your beloved, O God, and by your grace, lead us into the fullness you intended for us when we were created by you. Thank you, God, for making us who we are. We can be absolutely no less. We pray that this time in our country, this country that we built on our backs, will be the kairos that heals rather than reburies old wounds. Stir the waters, O God, for a civic baptism in this country. We pray for repentance and a blueprint for repairing the breach. We pray for a watershed moment in our country, where justice rolls like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. In the face of black pain, anger, and suppression, when too many have turned their backs, and when silence to the aggrieved has been experienced as violence, may there be confessions of guilt that lead to repentance. May there be a reckoning that leads to transformation in high places, the administrative, legislative, and judicial branches of government. May it swirl around in the sanctuaries, mosques, synagogues, temples, and other sacred places in this world. May it flow from heart to heart, home to home, and then out the door to the streets, the neighborhoods, the boroughs, the towns, the cities, the states, the nation, and the world. May those who come up from their civic baptism be converted and convinced that when all black women's lives matter, and all black lives matter, then all lives will matter. And the women said, Amen.
Greetings, my beloveds. I am deeply humbled and honored to join this virtual 4th Annual March for Black Women, and to be included among such a rich assemblage of sistren whom I admire, respect, which was more urgent and apropos for this moment. I have chosen to address why Black women's issues are central to the racial justice movement. I was pondering this question while watching the Emmys this past Sunday evening, and I heard the actor Yahya Abdul-Mateen II proclaim as he received his Best Supporting Actor award that the Watchmen series was also the story of a God who came down to earth to reciprocate to a Black woman all the love she deserves. And if that was not enough, I watched while the elder Black actor, Louis Gossett Jr., nodded his head strongly, affirming this declaration. I said quietly to myself that at last someone had finally answered on national television the question raised by the late and great Abby Lincoln in her powerful essay penned for Negro Digest in 1966. Who will revere the Black woman? And I quote her here in brief while urging and perhaps cautioning some of you to read her essay in its entirety for fullest effect. Who will revere the Black woman? Who will keep our neighborhoods safe for Black innocent womanhood? Black womanhood is outraged and humiliated. Black womanhood cries for dignity and restitution and salvation. Black womanhood wants and needs protection and keeping and holding. Who will assuage her indignation? Who will keep her precious and pure? Who will glorify and proclaim her beautiful image? To whom will she cry rape? Black women, femmes, and girls have been marching and fighting and writing for so long to keep our neighborhoods safe for Black innocent womanhood. Neighborhoods where Black women, femmes, and girls enjoy happy childhoods and jump for joy in a field of grass on a Saturday afternoon, and will no longer go missing as we disproportionately do. And if we do go missing, the media will issue special alerts that dominate the airwaves, and a community-led public safety force will rise up and issue all-point bulletins until we are found safe and sound. Black women, femmes, and girls have been outraged and humiliated when those for whom we march and fight and write to defend refuse to do the same for us. And this includes those men and boys who are born of our own wombs and nurtured by us, yet raise their fist against us, and all those who call us sister while engaging in theft and co-optation of our ideas, and robbing us of coveted educational and employment opportunities, while claiming to be fighting for us, even as they impersonate us. Not only do they neglect to cite Black women, but they have the audacity to pretend to be Black women in order for them to be cited. Now, ain't that some ish? Black women, femmes, and girls have been marching and fighting and writing for so long, yet our cries for dignity, restitution, and salvation have fallen on deaf ears. Not only are our cries not heard, we are also dehumanized and even criminalized for becoming pregnant, and then again, during or after we give birth, and especially, but not only if we are considered too young, too poor, too disabled, or too drug using. Black women, femmes, and girls have been marching and fighting and writing for so long because we want and need protection and keeping and holding, not only in the fictional miniseries that grace our TV screens or in Wakanda land, but in our daily reality. We want and need protection at all times and in all ways. And if you cannot provide that, then at least leave us to ourselves so we can create and care for our families and ourselves and our communities on our own terms and without surveillance, without punishment, and without taking our children from us at the hands of the police or the child welfare system, and with safe and affordable housing, with schools that tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about American history, with quality health care on demand, with health food, and with clean air to breathe and safe water to drink. Let us cultivate our gardens, grow old, and die natural deaths surrounded by our loved ones. Black women, femmes, and girls have always been marching and fighting and writing for so long that now it's time for all others to assuage our indignation, to keep us precious and pure, to glorify and proclaim our beautiful image, to hear us when we cry rape. if America is truly waking up and not just acting woke, then for all our sake, it is time to answer the question, who will revere the Black woman with a resounding, I will? And if you actually do, then trust Black women that the world will be a much better place for all of us. Thank you.
Sisters and fellow freedom fighters, I'm honored to be able to share with you and connect with you at this moment of crossroads for our country and our entire world. It's not lost on me that just 4 years ago, I stood before you in Washington, D.C., celebrating our strength, our resilience, and our power, all while warning us about what could happen if Trump were elected as president. In many ways, our forecasts paled in comparison to the nightmare that we've had to behold. We are the survivors of this administration, and sadly, we know many haven't survived. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But right now, I just want to tell you how grateful I am to see that despite the challenges and crises, we are more connected and aligned than ever. We have found new ways to strengthen our bonds and proclaim our dignity. In this time of global reckoning, we must also acknowledge the truth. As our dear brother Malcolm X rightly said, no one is more despised than the Black woman. This goes even for the most righteous and courageous amongst us, like our sister and brave whistleblower, Dawn Booten, the Black woman who worked at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement prison in Georgia and filed a complaint with the Department of Homeland Security about the high rates of hysterectomies and medical negligence that was happening at the prison. Our sisters there were being forcibly sterilized, similar to the vile and inhumane eugenic campaigns of the Jim Crow era in the South and in the Nazi regime in Germany. Ms. Wooten spoke out in their defense, and we must protect Ms. Wooten at all costs. You see, people like Pauline Bingham, a Cameroonian woman, was detained at that same prison. Since 2017, she and her young child have lived in immigration prison and under the daily threat of deportation at the hands of ICE. Pauline is a victim of one of these hysterectomies that Dawn Wooten exposed, and until just a few days ago, she faced the threat of deportation. In fact, Pauline was pulled off the plane as she was being rushed out of the country when the story broke and legislators had to get involved. The fact that we know of this atrocity and that we now have the opportunity to correct these unquantifiable wrongs is thanks to Ms. Wooten, thanks to the courage and fierce determination of a Black woman. This nation almost deported the evidence of its shameful acts. It has time and time again sought to cover up its ugliness. And that, my sisters, friends, allies, is what was at the heart of our intention when we created BLM. It was a determination that we should not tolerate these injustices. We should expose them. And we wanted to remind ourselves of what June Jordan said, that we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones who act like our lives matter. And so we demand the justice we deserve. I heard it said many times that when Black people get free, then all people get free. But I think the more accurate statement should be that when Black women get free, then all people get free. Y'all, I'm still saddened and outraged by the continued impunity like that of the recent murder of our sister Breonna Taylor in Louisville. We also remember Sandra Bland, Oluwato Yunsalu, Nina Pop, Tatiana Jeff. It's just so many Black women, femmes, queer, trans folks. We demand our freedom for them, for our ancestors, for our futures. It makes me hopeful to think that you're here right now, joining in this virtual march, because you can feel and see their power in their lives. And within you, all of us, embracing the truth about who God has made the Black woman to be. Strong, not by choice, but by design. Resilient, not because we want to be, but because she has to be. And in so many ways, Black women carry the weight of humanity on our shoulders. And the world is indebted to Black women, truly. Now, I know it may be hard, sisters, I'm speaking to you, but we have to continue to look ahead. We can't despair. We have to walk with more conviction, more clarity than ever before. The future we seek is worth it. It is our birthright, and it is possible. I pray that the divine within us guide us towards justice and victory. I love you. I love us. Our lives matter.
The revolution will be televised. We rise up because her Black life matters. We rise up to end violence against Black women. We rise up to stop being asked to choose between our race and our gender. We rise up to reframe the conversation to be truth-based and justice-oriented. We rise up to call in self-identifying women to vote in the 2020 election. Vote for women of color, because our vote is a vote for her Black life. Join Black Women's Blueprint as we broadcast the revolution for and by Black women during our 4th annual March for Black Women this Saturday, September 26th, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, on Black Women's Blueprint's website at blackwomensblueprint.org or on their Facebook and YouTube page. The revolution will be televised. For the past 3 years, we have marched for Black women. This year, to ensure safety for all, we will be gathering online. Join us as we broadcast the revolution for and by Black women. You can watch the 4th annual March for Black Women this Saturday, September 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific at blackwomensblueprint.org or on their Facebook and YouTube page. The revolution will be broadcast.
Black women are demanding our return on our voting investment this election. And that's in the form of policies that directly impact Black women, our families, and our communities. And we're demanding seats at decision-making tables. I think you would agree that Black women put more into this democracy than we get back. And Black women across this country want exactly what I want. We want economically thriving, educated, healthy, safe communities. And to be able to achieve that, it will take all of us, from the voting booth to elected office. I know for me that, living in some of the most politically toxic and racially divisive times with the backdrop of COVID-19 and many of our families being concerned about their economic stability, many of our family and friends and community are facing some of the hardest hardships in this generation. And so for me, that's tied to direct public policy, which is tied to those who represent us, which is tied by the political environment. And so for me, though, I still believe that we will build a democracy we can all believe in. And so you may be frustrated. I know I am at times, but it is about us having tough conversations with the candidates that are vying for our votes. Because we need to ensure that as we prepare to continue to go to the polls and to vote by mail before Election Day and voting ends on November 3rd, that we need to ensure that our issues are front and center when these elected leaders are sworn into office in 2021. And for that, it is looking at it from an intersectional perspective to truly determine what eliminating systemic racism looks like, allows us to imagine economically thriving communities where all Americans, including Black women, have access to jobs with a living wage with benefits. For us to have access to that true American dream, where Black women can imagine the possibilities exist when we continue to start our own businesses, employ those that are in our communities. In this world where we imagine the possibilities that exist, is that every child has access to a public education that prepares them to reach their full potential. And certainly during the global pandemic, when many women are homeschooling their children, that we need to ensure that they have access to all the tools that children from across this country have, and that is access to high-speed broadband, so that they have access to technology that allows them to innovate during this time. And so that's why we march. We march for economic access. We march for educational opportunities. We march to break down the institutional barriers and the racial disparities that exist. We march, we run for office. We advocate on behalf of not only our families, but our communities. So you know that when you fire up a Black woman, she doesn't go to the polls alone. She brings her house, her block, her church, her sorority, and her union. And that's what we need to do before the end of voting on November 3rd. We need to pull out our phones, our tablets, and we need to text, we need to email, we need to call, we need to, post on our Facebook, on our Instagrams, on our Twitter feeds, and even upload a video to TikTok so that we can activate our network. I know that we are powerful together. And although we are not marching in the streets this year together, that we are certainly from computer to computer, from tablet to tablet, from cell phone to cell phone, that we are collectively raising our votes today in solidarity of Black women across this country. So we each have a role to play. So encourage your neighbors to vote. If you are thinking about running for office, you can make a difference. So next cycle, you could be next. You could be the person sitting at a decision-making table, fighting for Black women, our families, and our communities. And there are Black women running across this country right now. In fact, there is a record number of Black women running for U.S. House of Representatives. And so we need to, find a candidate that inspires us and do 3 things in these final days. Consider volunteering for them, opening up our pocketbooks and supporting them. You might be your first political donation you've ever made. It may be the first time you've knocked on doors. You could also find amazing organizations that are doing the work and volunteering for them and investing in their work with our treasures. And that could be from $3 to $1,000. Many hands make light work. And every Black woman has a role to play. And so all we need to do is step into our leadership and lean in. My name is Glinda. My parents say they didn't name me after Glinda the Good Witch of the North from The Wizard of Oz. But Glinda the Good Witch said once in The Wizard of Oz that to Dorothy, we've always had the power. We just had to learn it ourselves, to paraphrase that. And so I know that when we all step into that power and own that power, we can move this country to higher heights.
Folks, this Saturday was the March for Black Women that took place here in D.C. The message was clear: Black women matter. Our cameras were there, and here's what we recorded.
We must fight for
I believe in the power of women. I believe in the power of Black women. Let us not forget that we are the movement. We are now. If not, now when? If not us, who? Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Black women matter. Black women matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
I'm sick and tired of patriarchy. I'm sick and tired of misogyny. I'm sick and tired of systems that oppress people. And I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I think as a new elder in this movement, I've come to support my sisters, the youth, and all of the people that want to demonstrate against hatred and racism and bigotry, xenophobia.
Black women have consistently carried us and sustained us, and so honoring Black women is necessary every day for Black people, for Black communities, but especially today because we are intentionally saying that we're here, we've been here, we're still here, we're leading us to a place that we haven't gotten to, and in order to do that we must recognize the importance and the beauty of all that we are in our entirety. And so we're hoping that the people who attend this march will create a movement for Black women to be fine just as we are, without any apologies, without any exceptions, for our leadership to be honored.
Black girls, they matter here.
I think it's important to come out here and support Black women because Black women have historically been there for Black men, and it's our job as Black men to stand up and say that we're tired of the injustices that are happening to Black women. If you look at a lot of income and stuff like that, Black women are at the bottom, and it's gone on for too long. So we really just want to empower Black women and show them that we're here.
I have Black women in my family that have empowered me throughout my life, and I believe it's important for young Black men to stand in solidarity with Black women, because when it comes to the movement, you don't think of Black women, you think of Black men. I think that's problematic because Black women are the foundation of all Black movements, and they established everything in order for us to be here.
Sandra Bland! Say her name! Sharice Francis! Say her name!
So when we have marches like this, it's really important to uplift the most marginalized of Black communities, and that is Black trans women, that is Black women, as a whole. So to me, I'm out here really making sure to uplift the most marginalized of Black women. I was at the march in January, and there were sections of it that, I came with a bus of Black and, brown people, but that march was very much dominated by white women, and white women are the ones who voted for Trump, right, over 50%. Black women didn't do that. And so for me, it's really important to have a march that is very specific for Black women and uplift the most marginalized within that demographic.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom! It is our duty to fight for our freedom! It is our duty to win! It is our duty to win! We must love each other and support each other! We must love each other and support each other! We have nothing to lose but our dreams! We have nothing to lose but our dreams!
Questions for a young poet. I ask myself, why not write about something happy? But when pen meets paper, it all goes blank. All the words start to jumble, my hands start to cramp, afraid that the weight of the truth will only stain the page, make a liar of me. A stranger asks, how can you write about your pain? I say, easy. Now sit back and watch me magician my trauma into a masterpiece. These magic words can turn all my insecurities into a soliloquy. Watch as a slit of the wrist, a sleight of hand can abracadabra my tragedy into something beautiful. My mother asks, why don't I write more about love? I told her when I was 19, a boy turned bandit stole my heart. That I fell so deeply into him when I finally got out, I left my birthright and common sense behind. At 22, a girl disguised herself as hero, only to be unmasked as villain, so love had to make itself a martyr for me. Save me from self-destruction. At 23, I had nothing left to give. My professor asks why I'm not writing this down, so sure in his privilege. forgetting that it is the victors who can rewrite history to look like themselves, and their narratives do not fit my story, calling these battles ending in bloodshed and stolen land manifest destiny, marking my mother's tongue and calling it ghetto. And I have to pause because I've never seen oppression spelt that way. A white classmate asked me, why do I have to make everything about race? And I tell them it's because Breonna Taylor was murdered in her home while she was sleeping. Because George Floyd's last words were to his mother, gasping for air, saying, I can't breathe because Breonna Taylor, because Sandra Bland, because Trayvon Martin, because Milton Hall, because I pray that my brother will not be next. Because I have the privilege to forget that they might come for me too. So when you ask, why don't you write about something more happy? I say, I just did.
Breonna Taylor.
Flying high on a lily pad.
Breonna Taylor. Priscilla Slater.
I am a lotus flying high.
Tatiana Jefferson.
Tatiana
Jefferson. Tatiana Jefferson.
And my eyes.
Oluwatoyin Salu.
Oluwatoyin Salau.
The things that life can like. I am a lily pad.
Taisha Miller.
Taisha Miller.
Taisha Miller.
Yvette Smith.
Yvette Smith.
Yvette Smith.
Flying high.
Kendra James.
Kendra James.
Kendra James.
Miriam Carey.
Miriam Carey.
Kiara Crowder. Kiara Crowder.
Kiara Crowder. Kiara Crowder.
Flying high.
Anaya Parker.
Anaya Parker.
Alexia Christian.
Alexia Christian. Alexia Christian. Asia Roundtree.
Asia Roundtree.
Asia Roundtree. Betty Jones. Betty Jones.
Betty Jones.
Sharice Francis.
Diamond Ross.
Diamond Ross.
Kayla Moore.
Kayla Moore.
Only I.
Dominique Remy Fells.
Dominique Remy Fells. Dominique Remy Fells.
Dominique Fells.
Dominique Remy Fells.
Aretha Lilly.
Aretha Lilly.
India Kager.
India Kager. India Kager. Jacqueline Nichols.
Jacqueline Nichols. Jacqueline Nichols.
Maya Hall.
Maya Hall.
Maya Hall. Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor.
Rekia Boyd.
Rekia Boyd.
Rekia Boyd.
Rekia Boyd. Veronica Woodard.
Veronica Woodard.
Tamla Horsford.
Tamla Horsford. Sandra Bland.
Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland.
Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland. Say their names.
Gaines.
Corin Gaines.
Corin Gaines.
Corinne Gaines.
Latondra Ellington.
Latondra Ellington.
Pamela Turner.
Pamela Turner.
Nuna LaRoche.
Noah LaRoche.
Nuna LaRoche.
Nuna LaRoche.
Shelley Frey.
Shelley Frey.
Shelley Frey.
Shion Miller.
Shion Miller.
Natasha McKenna.
Natasha McKenna. Natasha McKenna.
Natasha McKenna.
Tiara Thomas.
Tiara Thomas.
Tanisha Anderson.
Tanisha Anderson.
Tanisha Anderson.
Tarika Wilson. Tarika Wilson.
Nia Wilson. Ayana Stanley Jones.
Ayana Jones.
Ayana Jones.
Ayana Jones.
Ayana Jones.
Alberta Spruill.
Alberta Spruill.
Alberta Spruill.
Alberta Spruill.
Eleanor Bumpers.
Eleanor Bumpers.
Eleanor Bumpers.
Eleanor Bumpers.
Eleanor Bumpers.
Deborah Danner. Deborah Danner.
Or Danner. Deborah Danner.
Deborah Danner.
Catherine Johnston.
Catherine Johnston. Catherine Johnston. Catherine Johnston.
Joyce Cornell.
Joyce Colonel.
Kendra Chapman.
Kendra Chapman.
Kendra Chapman.
Kendra Chapman.
Kendra Chapman.
And I'm flying high.
Asia Roundtree. Asia Roundtree. Asia Roundtree.
Asia Roundtree.
Laylene Polanco.
Laylene Polanco.
Latasha Arliss. Ralkina Jones.
Ralkina Jones.
Melissa Williams. Melissa Williams.
Megan Hockaday.
Michelle Cusseau. Rhea Milton.
Kira Dixon Johnson.
Kira Dixon Johnson.
Amber Rose Isaac.
Amber Rose Isaac. Amber Rose Isaac. Shamani Gibson.
Only I can see.
Destiny Harrison.
Only I can free.
We remember the names and the lives of Black women slain by the police and the state, a state that is rooted in anti-Blackness, misogyny, patriarchy, and white supremacy. We also speak the names of Black women who have been slain by Black male partners. We remember all of the ways, the intersecting ways that Black women are oppressed by the state and by anti-Blackness and by misogyny within Black community.
Shalonda Irvin, Debbie Dominguez, Sabrina De La Rosa, Tara Hansen, Liz Bryson Wallace, Sabrina Snook, Kira Johnson, Amber Isaacs, Shamani Gibson.
Black women. Black men do look. R.I.P.
Say her name. Say their name. Black women lives matter. Never forget. Black women murdered by the police. Natasha McKenna, Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, Corinne Gaines, Ayana Jones, Michelle Cusseau, Dominique Rimini, Fail, Rhea Milton, Catherine Johnson, Alberta Spruill, Eleanor Bumpers, Atatiana Jefferson, Deborah Danner, Kendra James, Zakia Boyd, Betty Jones, Kiara Thomas, India Kager, Muna LaRoche, Yvette Smith, Tanisha Anderson, Jacqueline Nichols, Bernicia Woodard, Asia Roundtree, Latondra Ellington, Aretha Lilly, and never forget Private First Class Lavina Johnson, whose murder and rape was covered up by the U.S. military July 19, 2005. Say her name, say their names. Black women lives matter. Black lives matter. All black lives matter. See how it works? One love.
Hi, my name is Donna Hilton. I'm an activist, author, and founder of A Little Piece of Life, an organization that focuses on the abuse, trauma, violence, and incarceration of Black women and girls. Our prime focus is ending the criminalization of Black women and girls in this country and across the world. And I'm happy to be here to represent Black Women's Blueprint and the March for Black Women in this moment. In this moment in time in our country's history, especially because it is so crucial, it is so important. We must understand how important it is that Black women and girls stop being neglected and negated when it comes to those issues that most impact us. We must understand that negation is a burden which ensures that we will be unseen and unheard and guarantees our continued exploitation through systemic racism and misogyny. We must end this practice. We must understand the importance of Black women within our culture, within our society, within our respective communities. We must support each other. We must love on each other. We must understand the importance of Black sisterhood, Black womanhood. We must understand that if we don't stand up in this moment and use our collective power, that everything that our ancestors fought for and died for and bled for will be lost. I must let you know that in 2031, 10 years from now, the Voting Rights Act, which was enacted in 1965, will be taken away and Black people will no longer have the right to vote. Please understand what I just said. That the Voting Rights Act that our ancestors fought, bled, and died for will cease to exist in the year 2031, almost 10 years from now. If we do not exercise our power in this moment and vote up the ballot, not just down the ballot. We have to vote in who we want and out who we want. We must understand how important this is. It's not just the negation of Black women and Black girls. It will be the negation and the abject cruelty that will continue to exist like it did 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 1619, as Nicole Hannah Jones so eloquently wrote out for us, when the feet of the first Black people were brought here from Africa, brought over to the Americas, and we were enslaved all across the Americas. We cannot go back. We cannot go back. I implore you, I beg you, I demand that you use your power to vote. Vote in who you want and vote out who you don't want. Our lives are literally on the line. Let's march for Black women.
Hi, I'm Condencia Braid, and I'm excited to participate in the March for Black Women. Thank you to Black Women's Blueprint for all the work that you do on behalf of Black women and for consistently raising the needs to address rape and other forms of sexual assault against Black women. As we move forward this country's decision on leadership, there are key issues that Black women need to have addressed, such as what is the policy agenda to support the health and well-being of Black women in this country? Much of the policy in this country responding to Black women either vilifies or devalues us. We need strategies and policies that support Black women from a valued approach and not a deficit approach. We need assurances that the Violence Against Women Act and the Family Violence Prevention and Services Act, two of the largest funding streams in this country responding to domestic violence and sexual assault, that those funding streams include direct funding and responses for communities of color, including Black women and girls. We need educational waivers for the many Black women who are frontline and crisis workers who are struggling with economic debt and massive student loans. We need to ensure that the policies being crafted and responses to racial justice center and include the voices of Black women. We need to make sure that there's an engagement of Black women leaders and ensuring opportunities for Black women to be in key decision-making positions of power to influence, draft, and implement policy at the highest level. Black women need to have power and influence, not only to responses of social justice and social services issues, but also broader policy issues such as education, agriculture, foreign policy, economic policy, trade. Thank you again to Black Women's Blueprint for the work you're doing to ensure that Black women, voices, and experiences are lifted, involved, and addressed throughout this country. Thank you.
We demand to be afforded the recognition, dignity, and respect we deserve as Black women. We demand justice for the murdered. We demand meaningful presidential debates on issues that center Black women. We demand the passage of the Breathe Act, which divests our taxpayer dollars from brutal and discriminatory policy and invests in a new vision of public safety. We demand a better VAWA which protects survivors' rights. We demand ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment more than 100 years after it was introduced. We demand that Title IX protects survivors and not perpetrators. These are our demands. Join Black Women's Blueprint as we broadcast the revolution for and by Black women during our 4th annual March for Black Women this Saturday, September 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Black Women's Blueprint's website, Facebook, and YouTube. The revolution will be broadcast.
The widely held misconceptions that Black Lives Matter was founded solely for men or boys, that Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and I created Black Lives Matter for Black women.
It's important that all women of every age come together and see this and be a part of this. Black women have always been the backbone of this country, always.
We march for Black women who have survived violence. It will take all of us to get to the other side. Now on that other side, that's where we got the freedom and the liberation and the love and all the beautiful things that we all want. So can we say it one more time together?
Silence is not an option. We must band together and let our voices be heard in the service of community and the forward movement of our human collective.
I love Black women's brilliance, our ingenuity, our vulnerability, our big hearts, our big minds, our big hips, our big mouths, our big hair. Y'all, I just love Black women today.
Black women matter. Black women matter. Black women matter.
out here today where people are telling me be safe. I'm not afraid of fear. Just like Harriet Tubman, she wasn't afraid of fear. Her own brothers wouldn't follow her to freedom. But we need to change that.
Greetings. I'm Lisa Lynn Jacobs, CEO of Just Solutions and longtime sister friend and fellow traveler with Black Women's Blueprint. I greet you in the name of our ancestor Harriet, who, guided by the stars, made her way and ours when there was no way. I greet you in the name of our ancestor Rosa, who sat down and who investigated the harms done to us so that we could all stand up, fly, and be free. I greet you in the name of our ancestor Shirley, who, finding no seat for her at the table, brought her own folding chair, thus teaching us to bring abundance out of manufactured scarcity. No doubt, my people, these are trying times, but I don't feel no ways tired, because I know we have not come this far to turn around or for the deity to leave us now. We are the movement. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We are also the ones that we've been waiting for. A few thoughts on the centrality of us to the racial justice movement. Our foremothers have answered this well. Pauli Murray, lawyer, activist, lesbian, feminist, and Episcopal priest, whose brilliance was hailed by no less than Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who we all lost last week. Pauli Murray, who was one of the founders of the National Organization for Women, referred to it as the NAACP for women, because at that point she understood that Black women can be in spaces for Black folks and still not be seen or heard in all of their forms. Audre Lorde said, "A revolution is not a one-time event," and we are learning this well now. She also said, "Without community there is no liberation, but community must not mean a shedding of our differences, nor the pathetic pretense that these differences do not exist." I think it was that pretense that caused Pauli Murray to look to a second organization to bolster the work of the NAACP. And Sister Kimberly Crenshaw, who gave us more words to describe what both Pauli Murray and Audre Lorde knew and talked about. Sister Crenshaw gave us the word intersectionality to help us talk about, among other things, how discussions of police violence against Black folks sometimes get narrowed to police violence against Black men, as we have so painfully witnessed earlier this year in the struggle to get justice for Breonna Taylor, to get sis seen and vindicated, and that similar struggle that families and communities have gone through on behalf of so many before her, including Sandra Bland, Eleanor Bumpurs, Michelle Cusseau, Natasha McKenna, and many, many others. That experience led Kim Crenshaw to also start the Say Her Name campaign. Black women are central to the racial justice movement because we have always led it. Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Dr. Dorothy Height, just to name three. We are central because the ways that we move in the world are impacted by every identity that we have. Black, women, girls, transgender, gender nonconforming, cis, LGBTQ, documented or undocumented immigrant, U.S. citizen, DACA recipient, and many more. And because we nor anyone else can be free until we are all completely, fully, and in the totality of our identities free. That is how central we are to the movement. And though we are central, our safety and our freedom has never been fully centered by masters who enslaved and raped us, doctors who experimented on and sterilized us, white supremacists who 57 years ago last week blew up the 16th Street Baptist Church and with it 4 little black girls, from the cops who raped, abused, and killed us alongside our black brothers, to employers who pay us 62 cents for every dollar paid to white males, from people in our own community who harm us, whether by their actions or by their inaction. With Justice Ginsburg's death, we are here again at the margins, trying to get heard and to secure justice from institutions that were not built for us, not to see us, much less hear or heed us. This time it is in several ways worse. Coming on the eve of the election, after 3.5 hard years, after this year in the midst of COVID and the economic downturn and our summer of struggle, and at a moment where some folks are feeding on power while some of us, many more than before the pandemic, ain't even getting enough to eat. 2 years ago, during the fight against the Kavanaugh nomination, I stood with and spoke for Black Women's Blueprint and other leading organizations that fight for Black women and girls and for women and girls of color. And I said the following: justice demands that the American people have confidence not only in the integrity of those who sit on the highest court, but those responsible for giving their advice and consent to the president and the process by which they give it. As I read those lines tonight, though, I realize that while I was talking about justice then, today I need to be talking about just us. Because just us are going to have to turn this here thing around. Just as we have done in so many elections and campaigns and coalitions and struggles before. No one is coming to save us. It's just us. Just us to stir up so much good trouble that Supreme Court seat does not get filled until we have a new president. Just us to register folks, get out the vote, and vote. And just us to make sure that the next president makes the Supreme Court look and sound like us. Our experiences, our truths, our intersections, our struggles. It's time for just us to roll down like waters and sweep in a new day. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We are also the ones we've been waiting for. Go forth in peace and do justice for just us, my sister.
The revolution will be televised. We rise up because her Black life matters. We rise up to end violence against Black women. We rise up to stop being asked to choose between our race and our gender. We rise up to reframe the conversation to be truth-based and justice-oriented. We rise up to call in self-identifying women to vote in the 2020 election. Vote for women of color, because our vote is a vote for her Black life.
Hola, saludos from upstate New York, Troy, New York in the house to be exact. My name is Luz Marquez Bimbo. I am a Black Boricua born and raised in the streets of Harlem, and I live now in the beautiful small city of Troy, New York, which is exactly 3 hours from New York City, just so that you can get a chance to understand the geography. This is from the land of the Mohicans, and we bid you love and honor. I am here not just alone as a survivor of child sexual abuse, incest, and rape, all between the ages of 17 and 14. Oh no, but I bring with me my ancestors, those who experienced the Ma'afa, unfortunately, of the transatlantic slave trade, as well as the genocide of indigenous people, my people being the Boricuas. And so I share to us in this space, and thank you to Black Women's Blueprint for continuing to create space, even virtually, for us to honor the work we're doing and to ask us and demand of us more work, the work that's yet to come. And so thank you, and I'm here. I realize that as I'm here with you, this is my first time speaking, and it's not because it's my first time being asked, but because typically when I come to the National March in DC for Black women, it is me and Ntozake Shange, yes, the great Ntozake Shange, and the great poet, the great New York Boricua poet, Black Boricua poet Mariposa, as well as I bring along my daughter, Anansa Bimbo, and Jahir Curry, my goddaughter. And so this is actually my first time talking to all of my sisters and being with you all. And so I am deeply honored as I come off a tumultuous 2 weeks of constant rigor and fighting with my comrades, Troy for Black Lives, as we hold ourselves and our city accountable to Black lives here. Because just as the verdict came out around the police officers who killed Breonna Taylor, we had an ongoing case that we've had since 2017, and we've been organizing since 2017 against our former district attorney, Joe Labeloff. There was a thanks to Letitia James, our state attorney general in New York, who appealed the first acquittal of Joe Labeloff for the corruptive cover-up of the killing of Etzon Thevenin. Etzon Thevenin was a Black man who was killed as he was driving home in what would have just been a DWI stop or an alleged DWI stop. But instead, police officer then, Randall French, killed him, shooting at him 8 bullets in every different direction that you can imagine, and saying that Etzon Thevenin used his car as a weapon, which is not true, because how would you have the dexterity to shoot all over the place if you are pinned and in pain? Nonetheless, the court adjourned on yesterday afternoon, and within less than 2 hours or 3 hours, the same judge, Jonathan Nichols from Columbia County in New York, again acquitted him on all 3 counts. And so, yes, my comrades and I are continuing the battle. We're hurt. We're in a lot of pain. When it doesn't sit on us that this is all not a coincidence. We're living in a spiritual moment of reckoning. And so I am delighted to be here with you. And I thank you for inviting me, Black Women's Blueprint. And so I'm reminded that this is the first time that I'm speaking, because I've often given the mic to the great and lovely Ntozake Shange, as well as the amazing Nuyorican Black Boricua poet Mariposa Maria Fernandez. Because you see, for every year of this conference, that was our road trip. That's what we did. I leave upstate New York, pick up Mariposa and my daughter in New York City, or at the time, at one point she was in Providence. And then I'd pick up my goddaughter in Delaware, Jahir Curry, and last but not least, Ntozake from Maryland, as we went into Chocolate City. That's right, I called it Chocolate City because it will be and still continues to be, to join our sisters for this amazing march in DC. And so in thinking about that, I also remembered that last year I couldn't be with you because I was in Brazil building in solidarity with my sisters in Brazil around what does it mean to address and to end child sexual abuse from an Afro-Latinx perspective, a real Afro-Latinx perspective, one where we know we are Black. We know we are Black, and that the Latinx is the piece of us that is about our culture, representing Latin America, the Caribbean. And so I want to be clear about that. Don't get misunderstood by anything. We are Black sisters and we build in solidarity. And so I bring them all into this space. Yes, I do, because I'd be remiss to have such a space that was curated with love and intent by Black Women's Blueprint, Savannah Brown and Farah, without me doing the same and creating my 5 minutes and curating my 5 minutes with my sisters from Latin America and the Caribbean. Absolutely. If we are to talk about the lives of Black women and girls, then we got to tell the true story and the full story. It didn't start and end in this country, no. And it's not going to start and end in this country. And it is being really threatened and being dismantled by who? Black women and girls. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so I am so honored to be here. I'm going to quickly tell you that for me, it's really simple. What is demanding of us in this moment is to be deeply intentional about the time and the space that we curate for us as Black women and girls. And when I say Black women and girls and I say us, I am referring to those of us who speak Spanish, Portuguese, French Creole, and English. Because we cannot let what colonists and colonial rule do to separate us. Oh, no, no, no. We have to come together and build solidarity. It is our duty, just as Assata Shakur told us, to build solidarity. And as Aisha Shahida Simmons, which you've heard, I'm not sure where she is on the podium, but I know she's either coming or went before me, reminds us about doing this with love and accountability. So how do we build intentional solidarity with love and accountability with each other as we have truth and reconciliation around what has happened in our lives that has destroyed us and conditioned us to think that Blackness can only be English speaking and only owned in the US. And while I give honor and much respect to African American sisters, because I couldn't be loose and wouldn't be fighting what I do if it wasn't for those African American freedom fighters, I will not refuse to also make sure we don't forget the amazing work of Mama Tingo in Santo Domingo and of Mariela Franco and so many before. And so here we are. And so that is my message of building solidarity, as well as my last message to you is, and this comes from a great conversation I had with the great M. Adams from Madison, Wisconsin, when we talked about how do we create the we that we are all willing to fight for. We've got to. It is our duty, like I said before. And so that is what I want to leave you with. Let's build solidarity and let's build it around the we that we are willing to fight for. And that does not only include global diasporic solidarity, but it also includes building solidarity across all communities of color, because that is where our liberation and solidarity will live. I'm not just speaking as a Black descendant, Black woman survivor, but for all of us as survivors who are from the Black diaspora, those of us who are Afro-Latinos, and in my work to do I Am Negrix that were with us from 2015 to last year as we build to end child sexual abuse and would hold El Día Internacional de la Mujer Afro in DC. So I thank you all. I bid you well. Much love to you. Power to the people in Troy, New York, and in every city across this country and this world as we continue to reckon and dismantle white supremacy by targeting and being strategic about knowing that the police are the protectors of white supremacy and patriarchy. So thank you, peace and love. Seguimos pa'lante. Ashe.
All the baddies drop it right here. Wanna fuck me cause I'm top tier. I'm a savage, she got no fear. Call it magic, yeah. Come and get your life, I got plenty light. Tell me what's your mood, adjust the hue to fit your vibe. Can I get you high? Living black and white niggas acting like I ain't sacrificed my whole life for this. I chose life instead. I grip mics to death, met you via session. Lord, is this a blessing? We the perfect match, prey on my addictions, play on my obsessions. Bet you the first to crack, say my name, mention me every day. Swear I want everything, Jose and Mary Jane. Hope say I'm therapy, they dig me then bury me 6 feet deep. But I spread my roots, I spread my wings, plant my seeds, reap what I sow. Shit gon' get deep, but you grow. I need a piece of that dough, I need a week to let go. Weak in my knees when she roll. All the baddies drop it right here. Drop it right. Wanna fuck me cause I'm top tier. I'm a savage, she got no fear. Call it magic, baby, this your year. All the baddies drop it right here. This your year. Wanna fuck me cause I'm top tier. This your year. I'm a savage, she got no fear. This your year. Call it magic, baby, this your year. This your year, 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 baby, this your year.
Magic in the air, we don't play fair. I take both pair. Spoke life to me, I can breathe again. My condition, I couldn't leave in. Set adjacent to the matrix, half naked, still basic. Brain LASIK, heart racing. Passion took the lead, but so could yours. Use your force, open doors. What's the swords? Feed the poor, leave the course. You a gotta send a profit, fuck modest, let's be honest, the globe will try to enclose you. Mother Nature gon' expose you to breathing life without a sense of doubt. A setback and just a change route, you know about it. Low mileage, push that bitch and keep smiling, purpose what you want, it can happen quick. With it on your list and just take a risk. Once you on the chord, you can never miss. Like this beautiful, it sound like this.
yeah. Let's yo, yeah, baby, let's go.
Clearly, I am not a fat ass. I am active brain and lip smacking, peach deep, sometimes too aggressive in its honesty, and heart sweet, that loves wholly and completely, whom it may choose, whomever it may choose. I am not gonna lie and pacify. I am arms to hold. I am lips to speak. I am a motherfucking G. Strong legs that stroll off the 33 bus or out of a money green Phantom comfortably. Knees that bend to pray, clean from Ajax washings. Hair that is thick and soft. Thighs that betwixt an amazing, all expense, grand prize. I am eyes that sing, smile that brightens, touch that rings, and supplies euphoric release. I am a grand dame queen beast. I am warm, I am peace. From the roads of Botswana, from 23rd Street, from the inside, third eye, ever watching this wicked, wicked system of things I do see. I am friend to pen, and a lover of strong women, a diamond to men. I am curious and interested like children. I welcome the wise to teach, appreciator of my culture, thick, not just from bone dents and eat. I have a rhythm in my ways and a practice in my seek. And yes, I do crave the rhythm of my space with a man that rejoices in God's grace. With faith, I do hear to listen. Two hands that fist when force pushes to shove and your ego won't submit. I am gifted. I am all of this. And indeed, the shit. Clearly, I am not just an ass.